Uh, Scott, I'm not sure if you're audible.
Oh, sorry.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah, no, eh, just was waiting to make sure everyone was here.
Okay.
So I think we can probably go ahead and begin now. So yeah, welcome to the Velero community meeting for 25th of June, 2024. For the US and Europe time zones and overall status. These are kind of repeated from last week, but we went GA for 114 on the 17th. These are currently issues identified for 141. So if there's anything else that anyone has that you think we need to get in here, we can go ahead and tag those as well. Also, we are collecting requirements for 115. So if anyone else has anything they think that we need 115 or has any comments on any of these, now's the time to get going on that. That process is ongoing, but hoping to get started on the 115 development pretty soon. For my own status, I did get one bug fix, and we had an issue with data mover was had some changes in 113 and 114 to fail early so that we wouldn't wait for a 30-minute timeout for data mover pods that we knew would not ever come up. We had 3 cases in there, image pull issues, failed pods, and then the third case, which was the concern here, was unschedulable pods, which we were at the time assuming wouldn't come up. The notion being, okay, if there's no node available, it's never going to come up. We actually had 2 completely unrelated bugs that happened here. The one we found on the OADP side in our testing was with certain storage classes, specifically Ceph, that provisioning of the PV took a few seconds longer than, say, in GP2, and the pod would be unschedulable for that period of time, and we were failing. Another user put an issue in where they had a similar issue, but with auto scaling. So there were no nodes available, and Velero was failing the data upload before the autoscaler was able to create new nodes. So we just basically removed that condition. Unschedulable is no longer considered an immediate failure case. So we go ahead and wait for the timeout there instead. So that's merged on main. That's one actually I think we may want to tag for 114.1. I will put something in for that, I think. Otherwise, I think we're good there. Shubham?
Yeah, I think I'll update PRs on 141 issues. One was already in the works regarding adding, like, not like skipping and adding an error because of a type of PV using storage class wait for first consumer, and the other one was skipping temporary errors when we identify those errors in CSI plugin. So
Okay.
I think, yeah, and there's another issue that we spoke about, Scott, but I haven't created the issue about skipping the check for PV patch if the PVC is in pending state. I'll create another issue
Oh,
for
then
that.
is
Yeah.
that part of the 7866, or is that completely unrelated?
It's at the same place, but I think it should be a different PR.
Okay, got it.
Yeah.
Okay, any other status updates? Move on to discussion topics. Angelo, you've got one here.
Yeah, hey, before I jump into this one, just a quick check on the performance improvements, right? I had to miss one of the last meetings, but just want to see which issue or which PR should I kind of look at to see what is our final plan on the
Oh
performance
yeah, yeah.
enhancement.
Let me find that here. So we have a design PR. So basically, the design PR was. Let me find this here. Okay. So the design PR has been ongoing for a while. This is kind of the main area where I think we're pretty close to agreement here. There hasn't been a lot of comments lately because we've been focusing on the 114 issue. I would say go back and read through the design as it exists, because it's been updated a few times, and look at the comments. But this is where we'd like to get some agreement, and finally, okay, get to the point at least where we can start the implementation. I think there were a couple of issues that comments that we're putting in that were okay. These are small issues that we can work through in the implementation. I think we've worked through most of the big ones, but obviously there's no acts yet, which is fine. But this is definitely something we'd like to. Again, there's 2 phases, phase 1 and phase 2. I have phase 1, a separate issue I created as targeting for 115. So because we want to start that phase 1 implementation in 115, we'd like to get this kind of agreed upon and merged as soon as possible. Phase 2 will most likely be in 116.
Okay. Okay, great. I'll go through it again. I've seen it in the past, but I believe there has been a lot of churn
Oh
here.
there's actually been some somewhat substantial changes, especially around
Sure,
the
sure.
plugin API. That was kind of part of the design process, kind of working through some
Okay.
challenges and making it better.
Yes.
Yeah, it'd be great to go another review.
Yeah. Thanks for sharing that, Scott. I'll go through
Sure.
it.
Yep.
Yeah, coming to the issue that I've raised here, right? So basically, what we are seeing is maybe to quickly recap, right? Today in Velero, we have a backup sync controller where it kind of checks your cluster and sees, okay, if this backup backup is present in the storage bucket, I need to sync it and create it back in the cluster, right? And as part of that flow, there is also a sync which happens for the volume snapshot content, the CSI volume snapshot content in this as part of this flow. So what happens is if let's say two clusters are sharing the same storage bucket, they will have all the same set of backups and volume snapshot content synced across them, right? And additionally, let's say you don't even use the same container for doing backups on two clusters. Let's say you just created a temporary backup storage location for just doing a restore in a different cluster, then also the sync flow gets triggered, right? So I mean, logically it makes sense why it's there, what it's doing, it makes sense. But there is one which we feel like it's a bug, which we have tried to address as a part of this PR. So basically, as a result of this volume snapshot content sync, right, what we have seen is that for a lot of our customers, they are using the same storage account, and when we create the volume snapshot content in the other cluster, now that cluster does not have access on the underlying snapshot, like wherever the permissions are not available to the other cluster. So as a result of that, the CSI snapshotter, it tries to again and again do a re-put on the snapshot. It again tries to take a snapshot, right? So I put the context below. So, right. So what we believe is that currently Velero, when it does the sync, it just blindly creates the volume snapshot content, which is not the ideal way, because we are creating a static volume snapshot content for something which is already pre-provisioned, already created. It's just a matter of sync, right? So the screenshot that I've added, right, this is the guidance from Kubernetes documentation as well. Like for pre-provisioned snapshots, you should populate the snapshot handle. If you see the fourth or fifth line, the source should be the snapshot handle and not the volume handle, right? In our case, since we are just blindly creating it, the field is the volume handle. If you quickly open the PR, you can quickly understand the difference. You can open the file. It's just 2 lines of change. So in our case, the volume handle is populated because that is what is available during snapshotting. But when we are trying to manually create it through Velero sync process, we believe that it should be the snapshot handle which is populated and not the volume handle. Because if we do it the right way here, it will not do any unnecessary reputs of the snapshots or unnecessary make any calls. In our case, it was leading to the CSI driver getting severely throttled because all the snapshots were continuously trying to reput. Right. So this is the change. It's a 2 line change, and it's based on the documentation from Kubernetes. Yeah, I'd like to hear your thoughts, folks. Like, what do you think? Maybe we can connect later also. We can absorb this,
Yeah.
but yeah, we want to
Yeah.
propose this change.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I don't have a.
Hey,
Oh, so
yeah.
go ahead. Yep.
Yeah, it looks good to me, but I'm a little curious why the report happen if there's a volume handle. Do you know what happens under the hood?
Yeah, so there were certain new PRs also in the driver. It's like basically we tried to follow the code, but we were also kind of stuck on which snapshotter we are relying on. But there have been some recent changes where if a snapshot content is not available, they just requeue the snapshot content. I can share that PR with you. It is part of the external snapshotter and not any specific CSI driver.
So um, but things are not quite connected. Uh, you mean when the volume handle is not nil, it will try to put snapshot. I don't quite understand why they're doing this, but this is in the snapshotter controller logic.
Yeah, let me maybe try to So basically, when you create it in the other cluster, my understanding is the status is empty. It will look at the source. It will say, okay, this is my source. It is a volume handle, and I need to re-put and check. I don't have the very exact code line. We have gone through certain repros internally. We have tried to sync it across clusters. And what we have observed is if the snapshot handle is populated, it does not re-put. If volume handle is populated, it does a re-put. I could not pinpoint exactly what changed here, but yeah, this is from the POCs that we have done and based on the documentation. I can try to get more details if that's required, but
Okay, because yeah, okay, but again, even the snapshot, there's a snapshot handle. The snapshot handle is a snapshot ID in the cloud provider.
right.
Is that? Yeah, okay.
Yeah,
Mm,
exactly.
Yeah, I
okay,
mean,
yeah.
it sounds to me like, again, because volume handle says, hey, this is the volume we're snapshotting. And I'm just imagining, again, the way you're describing it, what's happening is that if you're trying to put this in a cluster, you see a volume handle, so it says, oh, we need to take a snapshot now. Whereas if the snapshot handle is the source, then we already have a snapshot, so there's no need to take one. Is that the kind of
Yeah.
your understanding of the behavior there?
Yeah, exactly, Scott.
Okay.
So this is to prevent, basically, because when you create a volume snapshot content initially in the cluster, for example, as part of the process of backing up, we set a volume handle, and that causes the CSI snapshotter to say, oh, I need to snapshot this volume now. And it does that.
Right.
So I imagine when we create one with a volume handle, it's actually snapshotting that volume. They're trying to
Correct.
there, but the volume's not there
Okay.
in that other cluster.
Correct.
Yeah,
Correct. Yeah.
yeah. Okay, thank you.
Okay. So yeah, I hope like folks got it. Thank you for like understanding. Please offline do a review if you see any concerns. We'll also try to take this downstream for now, since we are in agreement. Thank you.
Okay, and then we have Mikhail. We have
Yes. So
Yep.
The question is whether this one should be considered as design for 115. It comes together with another one that is at the very bottom of this page, LinkedIn. No, at the very bottom, you have design request combining 1703. So this is
Yeah.
actually to allow user to configure more of the Copia repository configuration. And we came across this because during the performance testing, there was a problem with ephemeral storage, which was under pressure, and the node agent pod was restarting, which caused the restore to be in a failed state. So it was an incorrect state. And from my understanding, the resolution here is either to change the cache of the Copia repo, or do something with the ephemeral storage mounted to the or assigned to the pod. And this varies between like Kubernetes and OpenShift, because Kubernetes is using the containerd and OpenShift is using CRI-O, which differently handles the ephemeral storage. However, to properly solve it, I believe this needs to be implemented in Velero upstream and design firstly to allow this configuration.
Yeah, I think this is on our radar, but I don't think we can commit it at the moment due to the limited resource we have at this moment. So I not sure if we have bandwidth. I mean, in Broadcom to handle this in 1.15. But do you think it may mitigate the issue if we adjust the default policy to, I don't know, change the value of this cache configuration? Would that be helpful?
So it's hard to say what the value should be when you are talking about like high capacity restores, right? And at least starting design on how to make this configurable would be a good point for 115. It doesn't need to be, I think, implemented, but at least we will know how the design properly will work with Velero. for that. And in the meantime, I think there is a workaround which will allow us to make the bug disappear. However, properly solving this would be through the configuration options.
Okay. Yeah. I'll discuss this with the team, but currently, we will need to leave it in the backlog. But thank you for your input. I think we'll handle this with priority.
Yeah,
But if
another thing which I was considering is whether actually the cache could be left on some non-ephemeral storage. So either kind of PV that is shared between pods. I don't know if the node agents are sharing the cache between them, but this will ensure that it's not limited by.
the node agent is a daemon set. I'm not sure is that possible. We configure a volume on the daemon set. It's not stateful set. In
I
daemon
mean,
set,
you could possibly with an RWX volume, you know, but not all clusters have that storage. The problem. I mean, if you have a storage class that has RWX available, that would work across nodes, but not all storage drivers support that is the problem. So that I don't know if that would work, you know, and not in all cases, certainly.
Okay, so if we could really like start please tag me on this, start designing part, and then from there we will see how much work is there, and maybe I will try to help here as well with the implementation. Okay, and
sure.
maybe there will be a window for putting this in 115 if this is not a huge amount of work.
Sure. Could you, I mean, are you from Red Hat or some other?
Yes. I will
Okay.
type.
Would you mind add a comment to this issue, saying this is important to you, and yeah,
Okay,
we can.
I will. Thank you.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, that sounds good, especially if
you have,
oh,
please
sorry,
go
go
ahead. Sorry. I mean, Miha, if you are interested even in the design, please feel free to write up a PR, and we are happy to review it. But I think our first priority in 1.15 is to implement this microservice data mover, which Yonghui has a design under review now.
Okay. Yeah, you know, like we'll see, because maybe if it is, you know, just passing some arguments to the copia itself, then it's not a huge deal, right?
No, it's not. No, it's not.
Okay, I will add this at the comment. Thank you.
Yeah, it just sounds like, to make sure I'm understanding this correctly, then it sounds like the main reason why we're saying that it may not be in the 115 roadmap at this point is mainly because we know there's not enough resources on the Broadcom side to do that. So if it turns out that, you know, on the Red Hat side, we do have enough resources to do this, then we may be able to get it in as long as we're committing to do that work.
Yeah.
Okay.
Or other, it's also possible if we are okay, we delay that for a few weeks to make sure this one is handled. I think that's also an option. But we'll discuss with the team.
Yeah, it sounds good. Yeah, but in the meantime, let's get a design together so we know, because I think that makes a difference as to how much work it is. Or we're not really sure yet. You know, is there a shorter kind of initial implementation that makes sense, that's a little bit easier, or is this a big thing? You know, I think the design will make that clear.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Thank you.
Wes, the deprecation policy.
Yeah, I just wanted to throw out a reminder there.
Yep.
I was
Yeah.
it was
I
under
recall
discussion
last time Subang said he's gonna make some change to this one, and
okay.
yeah,
All right.
definitely I agree. We want to merge this one.
Okay.
Yeah,
And
because
then
I think last week we had another issue come up that we were talking about deprecating. So that just kind of reminds us, hey, let's get this process in place so we're not just making it up, you know, as we go along.
Yeah.
Oh, I think I had
mm.
updated the PR, so
Yeah.
I'm not sure if there is anything that needs to be updated. Please comment on that, Daniel, if there's anything missing.
Fantastic.
Yeah, something was updated in January.
Yeah.
So okay.
Don't worry, take your time. There's no hurry. We don't need to rush this deprecation policy. And then I just wanted to throw out a reminder, like I know there's, and this is probably from everyone, the Kubernetes features are coming in around volume snapshot groups and CSI block change block tracking. I would hope that we are not for V115, Obviously,
Yeah.
well, yeah, obviously,
Yeah.
but we should probably have some of those high level goals discussed. Not every meeting, but every so often of what, you know, the whens and the hows and maybe you know, forward looking designs, something to just kind of remind the folks that are joining the community. It's a thing we're going to have to address, and it's going to hit us in the nearish future kind of thing.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, these two items are on our radar, and I think the volume snapshot groups is more ready last time I
Yep.
checked.
Yep.
ABT. Yeah, but yeah. Thanks for reminding, and yeah, we may discuss it and do some brainstorming, like how we can handle that. We can do it on the Slack channel first, and if we need more discussion, we can talk about it in the meeting.
Yeah.
Yeah, and again, just a reminder on the volume snapshot groups, that the work we're doing with you know, the performance improvements on the backup will help enable that. That's only a small part of that, but that kind of grouping of items is going to help us with the volume snapshot groups. Doesn't help us on the restore side. We have to figure that out separately, of course, and then the plugins themselves. So there's still a lot of work to do there, even beyond that. But at least with that implemented in 115, we'll kind of have that in first building block enabled that we can kind of build on top of for the remainder of that design work.
Yeah. Thanks, Scott. And that's it for me.
Okay. Did anybody else have any other discussion topics? I just reminded Anshul mentioned that, but if the other maintainers could go back and do another pass on my performance improvements doc. I think I still had one potential edit that I needed to put in. It was a small one, just a small clarification. I'll get that pushed today, assuming I haven't already. I'll just double check that. Otherwise, hopefully we're ready to do kind of the final reviewing now that 114 is out. I think from what I remember in the discussions, we were getting close. Most of the issues remaining were kind of implementation level things that we can probably hash out later, but let me know if there's anything else missing that we need to work through now. Hopefully we can get that resolved shortly, so that, you know, we can actually start implementing phase one, so that we're not risking 115 schedule on it.
Yeah, and as for the design for the you know, data mover microservice, we have done a few around discussion internally and refining the design. So Shubham and Scott, if you're okay to give us some thumb up, just please approve it, and we'll get it merged.
Yeah, I'll have a look at that as well.
Sure thing.
Okay, I think that's it then. Have a great rest of the day or week, and we'll have our next meeting next week in the other time slot as usual. Thanks everyone.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Scott.